I ducked away from the window and sat next to the bed on the floor. I didn't want to see any more. What the heck did I just witness? That was nuts. Was there only one? Were there more coming? Was it coming to take me away? The silence scared me more than the commotion. The silence gave my head the opportunity to run wild with worst-case scenarios. I just couldn't seem to wrap my head around what had just happened, and my body was shaking with anxiety that I just couldn't shake. I sat on the floor for I don't know how long until a knock on the door startled me. I stood up as quickly as my body would allow me, and I grabbed the lamp that stood next to the bedside table. I didn't know where to position myself in the room. I felt like I shouldn't be in front of the window, but I also didn't want to be trapped in a corner, and the bed was in the middle of the room, which also felt like a hindrance. There were no safe options that I could figure out. And this creature would probably be able to smell me no matter where I was. I couldn't seem to calm my racing heart to think clearly. "Grace, it's me," the Alpha King called out when I didn't answer after his first few knocks. I moved hesitantly toward the door and opened it with shaking hands. The Alpha King stood in front of me in all his glory. He was shirtless, and I couldn't help but once again notice his bulging muscles. He was perfect. The moon goddess must have really worked hard on him. Even now, with his hair disheveled and covered in splattered blood, he looked like a little slice of heaven instead of the intimidating Alpha King I knew he could be. We both stared at each other for a long moment before he said, "The danger has passed. You're safe now. You don't have to be afraid anymore." I nodded hesitantly, making room for him to walk into the room if he wanted. I wondered if he was the large black wolf I had seen some minutes ago. I tried to ignore the question though and shifted my thoughts to the kings that really mattered. I grabbed my chalkboard and began to draw the creature and a question mark. Alpha King Reese looked at my chalkboard and frowned as he entered my room. "What was that creature? That's what you asking?" he asked a little incredulously, which I didn't quite understand. "I'm going to go take a shower, and then we can talk about it," he said after a moment. I nodded, and sat in the chair in the corner, still holding the lamp as he disappeared into the bathroom. I knew the lamp probably wouldn't do me much good, but it made me feel more secure, especially with the Alpha King not in the room with me, even though he was right through the bathroom door if I needed him. Alpha King Reese came out of the bathroom with only a towel wrapped around his waist, and I soaked in his now clean appearance, which was just as handsome as the guy who came in disheveled from a fight. The way the water glistened on his skin made my heart skip a beat. The worst part was that he seemed to know exactly what he was doing to me. The little smirk on his face said it all as he disappeared into the closet. When he came out of the closet he had on sweats and a hoodie, almost as if to say, "You saw it but can't have it," in a teasing banter type of way. I regretted having noticed his looks in the first place. It had been an unnecessary distraction from what was going on. There had been a freaking monster in our backyard just 20 minutes ago. I flashed my chalkboard at Reese again, demanding my question to be answered this time. He looked at me in surprise at my ferocity, but responded, "I have absolutely no idea what that thing was, Grace. I have come across a lot of shifters and weird creatures in my day, and none have ever looked even remotely similar to that thing. I have a team currently scouring our library right now, and several people in other packs that I trust also searching for any hint of what the creature was. But it attacked my pack, it had to die." Scared? I wrote on the chalkboard asking how he felt. He looked shocked that I would ask him, and I felt uncomfortable again, wishing I hadn't asked anything. "I wouldn't say scared," he admitted finally. "But I also would be lying if I said it didn't put me on edge. I'm worried about the pack's safety." "Your safety? How it got so far into our territory without anyone noticing? There are too many things I don't have answers for right now, and I can't ease the pack's worries about anything." I could see how much it pained him to not have answers, and I felt the same anxiety about not having them as well. But I also knew I was with the most victorious, vicious alpha there was. He didn't get his crown without some blood on his hands, so I also had all the confidence in the world he would figure it out before it was too late. I got lost in my thoughts for a minute, but when I looked up, he was staring at me with that slight smirk I was growing accustomed to. I drew a question mark on my board and looked at him, wondering why he was staring at me the way he was. "That lamp," there was a trace of laughter in his voice, "is not going to protect you from literally anything." I felt my heat rise to my cheeks. I hadn't even realized I was still holding it. I quickly put it down, back in the space it belonged, and tried not to die of embarrassment. "Don't worry, Gracie," he said, the nickname making my heart flutter. "I will train you. We will make you a tough warrior out of you yet. You'll never have to fear others again," he promised. "I will train you myself." His promise took me by surprise, but I didn't say anything. There was no way I could match the Alpha King's power. Don't worry, he smirked. I can control my strength, Grace. I won't hurt you. I touched the scar subconsciously on my stomach. How would my body ever be able to do what I needed it to do? It couldn't even heal right. I could never protect myself before, even with training. I wasn't sure I'd ever be able to do that. Are you in pain? Alpha King Reese asked with a frown. He was staring right at my hand touching a large scar across my stomach. I shook my head no. I was fine. There was always pain, but it was nothing like it used to be, and that scar had been long healed, it just looked ugly now. A sign of weakness. A sign of old humiliations, and never being good enough to even exist. I had often wished I didn't exist. The Alpha King knelt in front of me, pulling my hands off my stomach and into his body. Those scars you have, Grace, they are yours and yours alone. They are your battle scars from wars you didn't ask to fight in. They are your story to tell to who and when you want. You have gone through hell and back, Gracie, and you have more strength than most people in this world. Think of them as a symbol of your new beginning. The one where you actually get to heal. The one where you don't have to be afraid anymore. They are a part of you. So be proud that you have made it as far as you have. They are a sign of your strength, your resilience, your power. You never have to let anyone take your power ever again. I tried to breathe, but it felt hard. No one had ever said such kind, powerful words to me before. No one had ever told me I was strong for having to have endured what was just my life. I had always just existed and endured. I didn't even know what I could say to that. I couldn't imagine being the strong warrior he seemed to be making me out to be. But for him, I wanted to try and be everything he saw. For him, I seemed to be willing to do just about anything. The next few days passed without incident. I stayed mostly in my room, and Alana came to visit a few times. She brought some books each time for us to practice reading and writing. It was a lot of her saying a word, pointing to where it was on the paper and me practicing writing it. She had a lot of patience because we worked on simple words. Sh. He also brought up a friend one day whose name was Sam. Sam was deaf, so he used ASL with his family and close friends to communicate. Alana was honest that she and Sam weren't close, so she didn't know many signs, but she saw an opportunity for us both to learn, and Sam was happy to help. And I was grateful for the company. I had never really had friends before, and it wasn't really till now that I truly saw the appeal. I sat in the dining area eating breakfast by myself. I always sat in the corner by the window. I loved looking out at all the trees, especially because it was fall now and the leaves were slowly changing colors. I loved the contrast of the orange and yellow against the still very green grass. It always took my breath away. I spent most of my day there. I was sketching with a pack of colored pencils I had found in the kitchen. When the dining room emptied out, I wanted to breathe some of the fresh air. I opened the back door and sat in the doorway. I was never allowed out of my old pack house, but sometimes, when no one was around, I would sit in the doorway for a change of scenery. I made sure to never cross the line, and I only did it when I wasn't expected to do anything or be anywhere. I smiled as I saw the kids in the distance getting out of school. Some ran, and some walked, and the wind carried their laughter. I had never been to school or gotten to be carefree like that. But I wished I had. I used to imagine it as a child. I used to dream I could live the way they did. What are you doing? I turned to see who was talking, and quickly got to my feet. Dr. Sonnet, hello, I greeted him a little breathlessly. I've told you, he smiled, it's Sawyer to you. But seriously, why are you just sitting in the doorway? Fresh air. I wrote on my chalkboard. You know you can go outside, right? He asked. The danger has passed. There's no sign of any more monsters, and we've upped security along our borders and in them. My eyes widened. I could go outside? I had never been allowed outside alone before. I quickly wrote on my board, it's okay. Sawyer muttered the words as he read it and looked at me in confusion. Of course, it's okay. You are not a prisoner, Grace. You can go outside anytime you want. Why would you even ask that? Were you not allowed outside before? Yes, old pack, I wrote on my board. That's awful. Sawyer said as a look of disgust crossed his. You can go out anytime you want. Why don't you go ahead? I can keep an eye on things if that makes you more comfortable. I shook my head no, hesitantly, as a lot of the school children headed this way. It's safe, Grace. Despite the fact that my brother is known as being ruthless, this pack takes care of its own. Everyone protects everyone. We have built a foundation of loyal, united members. I nodded finally and took a step outside. Everyone around smiled or was kind. I could do this, but I wasn't officially a part of this pack, and I worried that when it came down to it, would anyone choose to protect me? And if they didn't, would it even matter? Freedom seemed to be worth everything to me, and I ran out into the open, ready to explore everything. I couldn't wait to see what fun could be found in the place I had never been allowed. I sat in my office and ran a hand tiredly through my hair. How had I been searching for days and finding absolutely nothing in regard to this monster? There was nothing on how it got through, no noticeable scent to track, no ideas on where even to look. There was nothing in any book. There was no information from any of my stronger alliances. I was coming up completely empty no matter what avenue I tried, and it was beyond frustrating. There was a loud knock on my office door, pulling me out of my thoughts. "Come in." I called out, knowing full well that it was my beta at the door. "This is some crazy shit," Leon announced as he walked in, slamming the door bay. I&D him and plopping into the chair on the other side of my desk. "You found nothing either?" I asked tiredly. This whole thing had me feeling worn and old. "Nope, not a single thing." "Why don't we go back to our original plan? Go back to the Red Blood Pack. They are definitely hiding stuff." "No," I said firmly. "That monster was no coincidence. Maybe it was them, trying to see if they could breach our borders. Maybe it was a way to draw us out of our territory in search of answers. I have no idea the actual point of what happened, but I have an increasing suspicion that it involves Grace. What they want with her, I have no idea, but it's not a coincidence that she comes to us and within a couple weeks, a random monster shows up. I cannot leave her right now without the utmost protection. And part of that secure protection is me. So, what is the plan, Alpha?" Leon asked, knowing I was rarely wrong about these things. "I need you to find that stupid witch. Or any witch to start. It's rarely a good thing when witches are involved." Meeting with Sandra gave us a few places to start, but it also left us with more questions than answers. There is little we can do until we find more answers. "So, whatever we have to do, acquire me a freaking witch." Leon nodded. We both understood the severity of the situation. If we didn't get some answers soon, our pack would stay vulnerable, and as the king pack, vulnerability was not an option. Leon stood up mumbling something about he had to go make a phone call, and I took the time to just breathe for a second. I knew the more I tried to force answers, the less likely they were to come. I looked out the window when I heard kids' laughter. To my surprise, Grace was standing in a wildflower field. There were 3 or 4 kids near her, and I was surprised to see how much she was seemingly enjoying herself. The kids were picking flowers and putting them on her head as they all frolicked around the field. It was sweet. Then started playing a game and they started moving toward the forest. I immediately panicked. I stood up from my desk and raced to the back door as my wolf just told me to go, go, go. I needed to get to her before something bad happened. I needed to warn her not to far. And her being out of my sight for even 10 seconds felt like too much time. I would have completely blown by Sawyer if he didn't reach out and grab my shirt, forcing me back. "Let go." I growled at him. "No," he responded with a trace of laughter in his voice. "Sawyer, I'm not kidding. I have to get to Dash Grace?" He finished my sentence for me. "Yes." I bit out. "Yeah, I know, and I'm telling you as your brother, no, you are not going to Grace right this second. She is having fun for probably the first time in her life, and you are not going to march over there and ruin it for her." Sawyer answered calmly, making me freeze. "She's too close to the forest." I tried. "And what if she gets hurt? This is good for her." Sawyer answered, letting go of my shirt. "She is just playing with some kids, and by the looks of it, it's tag. You are overreacting by a mile. We played way worse games than that growing up." He teased. I had no argument for him. He was right, but the idea of something happening to hurt incited a panic in me like nothing else ever had. "And I'm not an idiot," Sawyer continued when he realized I wasn't going to say anything. "I was keeping an eye on things. She told me she had never been outside alone, bro. As her doctor, it's good for her to try things outside her comfort zone. She had never been outside alone before?" My heart clenched a little, but I watched her play with the kids for a while. She was running when she caught sight of me, and she immediately stopped. "It's time to get ready for dinner," I told her, trying to keep my voice even, despite my nerves. She nodded at me, but the solemn expression she often wore returned to her face. And I hated it. We walked back to our room in silence, but as soon as the bedroom door closed behind us, she was immediately scribbling on her chalkboard. "I'm sorry. I was not running away. I was playing," she wrote. It was one of the clearest sentences she had ever written, taking me by surprise. I hadn't talked to her much in the last couple of days, but it was clear she had been working. "I'm not mad. I just worry about you." I told her gently, pushing a strand of hair out of her face that had fallen out of her ponytail. I couldn't stand it if you got hurt. I wanted to try outside. She wrote. I'm okay. I nodded at her and cupped her face. I couldn't control how protective I was becoming over her, or how much I really wanted to lean down and kiss her lips in this moment. My wolf wasn't helping. He wanted her as much as I did these days, but I knew we couldn't do that right now. I wouldn't risk her, even if it was increasingly hard to keep my hands to myself. My wolf, agreeing with me, suggested that we should just kill the one who marked her, so we could claim her for ourselves, and I couldn't help but think that wasn't a half-bad plan. The only problem was, who was he officially? I caught myself leaning in despite what my head was telling me. Her big eyes were looking at me, and for once she seemed to have desire in her eyes as well. Kiss her, my wolf pleaded. No. I shook my head and backed away. I couldn't do that to her. She was just beginning to heal. I couldn't mess that up again. You should change for dinner. I told her, my voice was husky with desire. She nodded and moved toward the closet, and I sat in the chair for a moment trying to process what just happened. I had never craved intimacy like this before. No one had ever driven me or my wolf this crazy with desire. No one had ever made me think through consequences like this before either. I didn't want to hurt her. The idea of hurting her made my stomach churn. But the idea of touching her, kissing her, anything with her, made my heart flutter and my restraint wear thin. I had no idea how long I could go on like this, but there was no choice at the moment, and that unsettled me the most. I'll meet you in the dining room. I called out to Grace. I didn't wait for any response, or sign she'd give me, I just bolted. I needed to get out of this room and put some space between us before I did something dumb like give in to my desire. I needed calm, but the yelling down the hallway told me I was not going to get it. You had no right. I heard my beta, Leon yelled. It's not my fault that your mate went looking for what you couldn't give. My twin, Caleb shouted back. You knew she was my mate. Leon retorted angrily. Hey, I interjected with a sinking feeling. What the hell is going on here? What's going on? Leon seethed. Is that this jackass slept with Heather, my mate? What? Caleb, why would you do that? Caleb frowned. First off, it takes two to tango, so I don't know why we are just mad at me. Second, it was a long time ago. I was drunk, she was there, and we had a night. It wasn't anything special. We never did it again. I don't understand what the big deal is. It was a long time ago. He answered simply, glaring at Leon. Being drunk is not an excuse. Leon shouted. And it doesn't make it okay. Caleb, I tried to keep my voice even, but I was fuming. How dare he act like it was no big deal? It was a big deal no matter how long ago it was. He had done this with several of the women I had thought might be the one for me. It had never mattered to him that they were mine. He had slept with them anyways. This has gotten out of control. You cannot sleep with every woman you see. There are people involved. People with feelings. People who you are supposed to care about. Caleb sneered. Give me one good reason to care about the feelings of your best friend. What has he ever done for me? But I did care. I cared enough to make sure his mate was well taken care of. The insinuation made Leon lunge, and I pulled him back, though a part of me wanted to let him go. Caleb might be my brother, my twin, but he was crossing too many lines for me to be comfortable with his behavior anymore. I am serious, I growled at him. This is your last warning, Caleb. There will be no others. I was drunk. Caleb argued. It was one time. I've done worse before. That shouldn't matter. I shot back. I don't get why you would even care. All those women were just using you anyways. They were so stupid, I'd be surprised if they even had brains in their heads. I was just a means to an end, since you couldn't give them what they wanted. I saved you from their stupidity, so you didn't have to keep them around that long. It doesn't matter. I gritted out. He was really testing my patience, and the fact that he showed absolutely no remorse was grinding my gears. You shouldn't touch what isn't yours. Caleb let out a laugh. He clearly didn't see a problem with any of this. Some of those women came to me, Reese. That's not an excuse, Caleb. And I wondered just how long it's going to take for sweet little Grace to come find her way to my bed, when yours is left cold and empty. He continued taunting. I didn't think. I lunged at my brother, knocking us both to the ground. The second he brought up Grace, he went too far, and I realized he would never change. We both tumbled to the ground as we both started to half shift. Anything went in this moment. Anything but the kill shot. But I wasn't thinking when I punched him repeatedly, and he swung back, hitting my jaw, and my shoulder. My hand connected with his jaw, and my hand held his throat as he tried to break free. He protected his face with one hand, and began to scratch my other in an attempt to get me to let go. Seriously guys, Leon shouted over the scuffle. Knock it off before somebody sees. But we paid him no mind. This had been a long time coming, and for the first time since we were 12, we were going to do something about it. We hit, kicked, punched whatever we could, somehow finding us both on our feet again, but neither of us were off balance. He ran at me, but I defended myself well, only taking a punch to my shoulder as he attempted to then tackle me. I heard a gasp register in the background somewhere, and my stomach sank. I turned to see who had made the small noise, begging the goddess that it wasn't the person I thought it was. But when I turned, my whole body deflated. Damn it. It was Grace. Thanks everyone for tuning in and listening to this fantastic story. Just a quick heads up, all the books featured on this channel come from Reading, your ultimate hub for staying on top of web novel updates, so you'll never miss a chapter again. I've already dropped the link to this book in the comments section below, so jump in, share your thoughts, and chat with fellow readers.